Carl, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, Carl, what is behind all of this? Why do you think Kanye West wants to buy Parler?
I think trying to get into the mind of Kanye West is kind of a fool's errand because you never know where it's going to be today or tomorrow. But I think the underlying purpose here is he sees this as an opportunity to get across the views that he wants when he's seeing other platforms say that he can't. And other platforms are making those decisions because they do what's best for their users and their customers and decide that, hey, we don't want anti-Semitic speech here because nobody wants anti-Semitic speech, but Kanye does. And so he's moving over to Parler and he's trying to acquire Parler, and he's trying to use that as his new platform for content and outreach.
Let's talk about the history of Parler for just a second, Carl, because Parler disappeared after January 6th because it was pulled off Apple and Google Store. Actually, it was pulled off leading up to, well, it was pulled off because of, in the days leading up to the event, they supposedly failed to moderate violent discourse, violent discussion. So if Kanye buys Parler, should we expect to see a lot of this, a lot of hate speech and violence?
One of the things that Parler claims to do, as opposed to what its legal documents say, claims to be a place for anyone to say anything that they want. But if you look at their legal documents, they make crystal clear, just like every other social media site, that they may at any time remove content that they don't want up there. Now, Kanye's takeover may turn the dial up and allow more content, or it may turn the dial in the other direction and be a bit more discriminating as to what content is allowed. But I will say that the market has shown that people want to go to sites where the content is moderated. We have today on the internet websites like 4chan and 8chan, which are completely unmoderated social media websites that are the cesspools of the internet. And why don't we go there? Why don't we even really know about them? It's because we don't want to go there. We want platforms to remove lawful but awful content like child grooming, like terrorist recruitment, like animal abuse videos. And so most Americans want content moderation to remove the truly awful but lawful content. And if Kanye wants to make this a successful endeavor, he needs to probably follow in the same footsteps that the market demands and the customers demand.
Let's talk about the trend here, because this isn't the first time that we've seen a high-profile conservative celebrity purchase a social media platform. I mean, we saw that with Elon Musk and then Twitter, and then, of course, former President Trump started his own social media company after he was banned from Twitter. What does this mean for the freedom of speech? I mean, should we be worried that these types of purchases are politically motivated? Are we going to see more and more of these?
I think it's a great sign of the robust opportunities for free speech and the robust competition in the social media universe. I mean, just look at it as the couple that you named. You have President Trump's Truth Social, you have Parler, you have Twitter, you have Rumble, you have Substack, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And what that means is people with opinions can find the site or service that they want, and the site and service that will host the type of speech that they want to have. And so one of the things that this has really illustrated is that government calls for more content moderation or less content moderation or government control of the internet just don't match reality, because the marketplace is working. What we are seeing is people who want to create a social media site can. People who want to have a highly curated site have that. And that's the free market working. That's one of the wonderful things about the internet is the barriers to entry are very, very low. They've never been more low in the course of human history, where somebody can go and acquire a business or start their own. And if you have good content, a good product, and good word of mouth, the people will come.
Through these channels, I think a lot of discourse in the U.S. has been shaped. So can we expect to see more acquisitions like this? Will we see liberals try and make purchases of social media platforms so that all social media platforms look more and more like partisan cable news channels? Is that the future? Is that where we're headed here?
And one of the other wonderful things that I mentioned is the low barriers to entry. So, for example, a lot of people don't want to see any political content whatsoever, and there are opportunities for that. There are subreddits. Those are the special channels on Reddit where people only talk about one particular issue. And if you talk about anything else, you get kicked out of that subreddit. So, for example, there's a subreddit all about pictures of dogs on their hind legs. If you post anything or talk about anything other than a dog on their hind legs, you get kicked out. So one of the things that we will see is, while some people try to pull to the edges of political discourse, we will see a majority of Americans, just like we see in polls and statistics, the majority of Americans are somewhere in the middle. And they have a lot more on their mind than politics. Most of us are thinking about what's going to be for dinner, what are we going to feed our kids, and how are we going to afford our groceries. So those are the top concerns for Americans, and they are not necessarily politically oriented left or right, but they're right there in the middle. And so if you want to create a website only for the left or only for the right, you are inherently creating a more narrow opportunity for your growth. And that's why a majority of businesses go somewhere in the middle. And they don't allow extremist content from either side of the aisle. And so the good news is choice is prevalent and the free market is working.
So I want to ask you this, Carl, and I'm hoping I'm not opening up a can of worms here. What is your take on this? Where is the line here? I mean, if you have one of these companies, why are you beholden to certain rules and regulations? If you are a privately owned company, I mean, a lot of these companies are publicly traded, where is the line in terms of business practices and policy? Can you set your own rules and regulations as to what you want to see on your platform? Like you were just saying, puppies, or what you ate for breakfast or dinner that day?
One of the things that is true about networks like yours is you're privately held. No one can come out and tell you, you have to have Carl Szabo come out and speak. You have to have somebody else come out and speak. You get to make those decisions for yourself. Same thing's true for restaurants. They get to decide what's on the menu and what hours they're going to be open. And the same thing's true for social media platforms. And what we have seen time and time again is social media platforms, are the big ones especially, are going to do what a majority of Americans and customers around the world want, and engage in the type of content moderation that a majority of Americans want. And so that's where it's going to lie. And they are going to be the ones making the decisions, these private businesses, because they're the ones in the best position to make it, because they know their customers best. And simultaneously, they're the ones who are most beholden to the customers. And that's why you don't want somebody coming in who has no real stake in the game, aside from political persuasions. And that's why it's best to leave it up to the free market and the private businesses to decide which burgers are selling best when it comes to restaurants, and which type of content is most enjoyed and least approved by customers when it comes to social media.
All right, Carl Szabo, Vice President for Net Choice and Professor of Internet Law at George Mason's University's Scalia Law School. Carl, it's nice to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up next on Newsy Live, honoring a historic symphony musician.